A profitable strategy isn't something you discover one morning like a coin lying on the sidewalk. It's something you grow into, something you refine, something you bleed for. And if you stay in this business long enough, you'll eventually reach a moment where you realize you're not trading the way you once did. You're not flinching at every tick, you're not gambling on hope, and you're not confusing luck for skill. Instead, you're acting with a certain calmness, a certain clarity, a certain decisiveness that only comes from hard-earned lessons. That's when you know something has changed. That's when you know you finally have a profitable trading strategy. And there are signs, 5 of them. Each one unmistakable once you've lived through enough failure to recognize the smell of success. It usually starts with the first sign. You no longer feel the need to trade every day. The novice believes that movement means opportunity, and opportunity means action. He thinks his job is to be in the market as often as possible. He fears missing out, and that fear drives his decisions more than logic. But eventually, after enough losses, enough days where impatience cost more than any bad trend ever could, something shifts. You start to value selectivity over activity. You stop swinging at every pitch. You realize the market isn't a place that rewards constant motion. It's a place that rewards correct motion. There's a difference. You begin to wait sometimes hours, sometimes days for the right moment. You do it because you've finally seen the money you save by waiting is more powerful than the money you earn by rushing. That restraint, that discipline, that ability to do nothing when nothing should be done, that's the first sign your strategy is profitable. Because anyone can pull the trigger. But only a real trader can sit on his hands. The second sign is even more important. You start to understand your losses in a new way. Most traders lose and immediately look outward, blaming the market, the news, the spread, the system, the broker, the timing, everything but themselves. But when you develop a profitable strategy, losses stop feeling like personal attacks and start feeling like operational costs. You no longer spiral when a trade goes against you. You no longer panic because you know exactly how much you're willing to risk. Your stops are logical, not emotional. You don't shift them out of fear or greed. A loss doesn't rattle you because your confidence no longer comes from the outcome of an individual trade. It comes from the reliability of your method. You've already accepted that losing is part of winning. You've structured your position sizes so no single mistake can destroy you. And because your losses are controlled, limited, anticipated even, you start to see them as an essential component of the broader plan. When losses stop feeling chaotic and instead feel like routine business expenses, that's when you know your strategy is real. The third sign arrives quietly but unmistakably. Your trades begin to feel almost boring. Not dull in a negative sense, but stable, predictable, methodical. When you first start trading, everything feels like a rush. Your heart pounds at every candle. You stare at the screen like it holds the secrets of the universe. But when your strategy matures, your emotional graph flattens. You no longer experience the roller coaster. You place trades because your setup appeared, not because you felt like trading. You exit because the plan told you to exit, not because your nerves forced you out early. You stop needing the market to entertain you. You no longer chase excitement. You stop needing that dopamine spark. Instead, your executions become mechanical. You follow your edge the way a craftsman follows his measurements, and the craft becomes so familiar, so predictable, that you almost forget how wild this business used to feel. That sense of steady neutrality is a clear signal of profitability. Anything emotional is dangerous in the market. When trading becomes routine, when your pulse stops dictating your decisions, you've stepped into a different level of mastery. Then comes the fourth sign. Your results start to become consistent, not because the market changed, but because you changed. You stop having mammoth winning days followed by catastrophic losing days. Your equity curve becomes less erratic. The big swings smooth out. You become the kind of trader who can stack modest gains with precision. And when the big trend finally comes, you aren't surprised by it. You're prepared for it. You know exactly how to scale. You know exactly when to hold. And you know exactly when to let the trend carry you. It's not hope, it's structure. Most traders will never understand that consistency isn't built on huge wins. It's built on the elimination of stupid losses. The moment you stop sabotaging yourself with impatience, oversized positions, revenge trades, and premature exits, everything changes. Your strategy is profitable not because of its ability to generate massive windfalls, but because it prevents destruction. If you can stay in the game, the gains will come. Longevity creates profitability. Always. But the fifth sign, the rarest of all, is that you begin to trust your own judgment over the noise. You stop needing confirmation from outside voices. You stop running to social media, to analysts, to random opinions. You stop seeking validation for your trades. You no longer feel compelled to compare your results with anyone else's. You begin to realize that most people talking about the market don't actually understand it, they just speak loudly. Meanwhile, you've learned that the market rewards the quiet thinker, the observer, the strategist. Your confidence becomes internal. You trust your analysis because it has proven itself. You trust your entries because they are based on repeated patterns. You trust your exits because you've studied the behavior of price long enough to recognize when the game is shifting. And when your judgment becomes calm and self-reliant, you stop being swayed by the noise of the crowd. You become an independent operator. That is the final sign of a profitable strategy, not just knowing what to do, but knowing why you're doing it. But these 5 signs don't show up all at once. They arrive after a journey through the parts of trading most people never talk about. The moments you sit with your head in your hands after blowing up an account. The nights you can't sleep because a position is moving against you. The frustration of watching price hit your stop by a single tick before reversing in your original direction. The feeling of being punished by the very market you're trying to understand. You go through enough of this, and eventually you start to see the patterns not in price action, but in your own behavior. And that's the beginning of real progress. You start to see how impulsive decisions always cost more than planned ones. You start to see how greed clouds judgment. You start to see how taking trades out of boredom results in disaster. You start to see how holding losers and cutting winners, something beginners do naturally, is the exact opposite of success. You start to see how trying to predict the market is foolish, and how reacting to the market is far more profitable. You start to understand that you don't need to know what will happen next. You only need to know how you'll respond to what happens next. This is what separates the trader with a profitable strategy from the trader chasing one. The profitable trader has clarity. The chasing trader has confusion. The profitable trader waits. The chasing trader forces. The profitable trader respects the risk. The chasing trader ignores it. And the profitable trader wins over time because he understands that trading is not about being right. It's about managing the consequences of being wrong. Once you've lived through enough cycles, you begin to appreciate that there's a certain simplicity to profitable trading. Not the shallow simplicity of beginner optimism, but the deep simplicity that comes from stripping away everything unnecessary. You don't need dozens of indicators. You don't need complex algorithms. You don't need complicated theories. You need a clean entry method, a logical exit, a proper risk plan, and emotional stability. That's it. The rest is noise. And profitable traders know how to block out noise. You also begin to recognize the difference between randomness and opportunity. Most price movement is noise, but every now and then the market reveals its intentions. A breakout that doesn't immediately fail. A pullback that respects structure. A trend that strengthens instead of fading. These are the moments your strategy is built for. When you can identify them without hesitation, without confusion, without second guessing, that's when your strategy begins to pay you. Because a profitable strategy isn't about quantity, it's about clarity. As the signs start to compound, your relationship with fear changes. Fear used to control you. Fear used to trigger early exits, hesitation, missed entries, and oversized losses. But once you've built a strategy you trust, fear no longer controls your decisions. It becomes a signal instead of an obstacle. You can feel fear and still execute the plan. Fear becomes information, not a threat. And when fear stops dictating your actions, you reach a level of freedom few traders ever experience. Greed changes too. When you were new, you chased huge wins. You held trades because you wanted more instead of because the trend justified it. You scaled positions recklessly, but after developing a profitable strategy, greed loses its power. You no longer need the market to give you everything in one swing. You stop trying to hit home runs. You focus on consistent base hits. And you discover, ironically, that trading conservatively produces far bigger returns than trading aggressively. You also start to evaluate trades differently. A beginner judges a trade by whether it made money. A profitable trader judges a trade by whether he executed correctly. Sometimes the market doesn't reward a perfect trade. Sometimes it rewards a terrible one. But you learn not to take the bait. You learn that execution matters more than short-term outcomes. You learn to think in terms of hundreds of trades, not just the one you took today. And when your perspective expands, your results stabilize. One of the most profound shifts happens in your sense of time. New traders believe they must succeed quickly. They measure progress by days and weeks. But when your strategy matures, you start thinking in months and years. You stop caring about what the market does today. You focus on what it does over the long run. That shift in time horizon reduces pressure, enhances discipline, and increases profitability. You also become aware of your market niche, your edge. Not all strategies fit all traders. Some excel in trends, others in ranges. Some thrive on volatility, others on stability. When you finally developed a profitable strategy, it's because you found the style that fits your temperament. Not the style that promises the most money. Not the style that looks the most exciting. Not the style that other traders glamorize. The style that aligns with your strengths and minimizes your weaknesses. This alignment is what gives you staying power. And with staying power comes confidence, not the loud, reckless confidence of a beginner riding lucky trades, but the quiet, steady confidence of someone who has survived enough storms to understand his ship. You stop overreacting to small mistakes. You stop panicking during pullbacks. You stop expecting perfection. You become realistic, grounded, and patient. Traits that mark a trader who has crossed the threshold from hope to skill. These 5 signs, selectivity, mature understanding of losses, emotional neutrality, consistent results, and self-reliant confidence, are the foundation upon which long-term profitability is built. But the truth is, you'll only recognize them after you've experienced the alternative, after you've traded out of fear, after you've traded out of greed, after you've tried shortcuts that didn't work, after you've trusted opinions that cost you money, after you've taken impulsive positions that wrecked your account. Only then will the signs feel unmistakable. A profitable strategy is not defined by indicators, patterns, or predictions. It's defined by discipline. It's defined by behavior. It's defined by self-control. And the moment you realize that mastering yourself is harder and more important than mastering the market, you've already stepped onto the right path. The signs don't reveal themselves in a single moment. They accumulate gradually, quietly, until suddenly one day you realize you're trading differently. You're thinking differently. You're reacting differently. You're no longer at war with the market. You're aligned with it. And from that point forward, everything changes. That's when you know you've finally built a strategy that works, not just today, not just this month, but for as long as you have the discipline to follow it.